Okay. Calling the meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission to order. It is August 5th, 6:30 PM. Gus, can we get a roll call, please?
Commissioner Westcott, Commissioner Snyder, Commissioner Mala, Vice Chair Stein,
Here.
and Chair Gabbard.
Here. Okay, no members of the public present. So moving on to the approval of minutes. June 17th minutes. Did everyone have a chance to review those? Any additions, redactions, edits? Okay. July 1st minutes. Any changes to those? Okay, we'll go ahead and anyone want to put a motion forward to approve both of those minutes?
May I ask a question on procedure?
Yes.
I
didn't know the
can,
answer.
I can, with confidence vote on the June 17th minutes, but I would abstain from July 1st. So are we approving them together or separately?
Let's approve them separately since you're going
Thank
to
you.
abstain. June 17th minutes, motion to approve.
I move to approve.
Second.
I second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Motion to approve July 1st minutes. Second.
I second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. Okay, on to discussion items, historic markers. So we were tasked with starting to put together panels for our respective topics. So what I was thinking we could do is everyone could go through and just show what you have in whatever version you have it in. And then after the meeting, I'm hoping that we can maybe figure out a way to pass those around so that each group gets to review another group's and just comment on those. And then we'll switch again. So everyone will have a period to review just one group's panels, not two, if that makes sense, not two groups' panels at the same time, just to keep the workload manageable. So after the meeting, we'll pass the panels around so everyone can review a different group's set. Would you like to go first, Dr. Stein?
Yeah, may I speak to the objectives? So I just want to share some visuals with you to start with, and then I have a series of questions and then just some information to share. Is everyone all right with my moving forward in that fashion? Okay, so I handed everyone a rudimentary copy of one of the panels, just as a visual. And so this is almost to scale, but I had to work within the limitations of my the computer programs that I have access to at this point. So the reason why I'm going to be requesting these back after the meeting is because the text I just sandwiched into the boxes to provide a visual. A great deal of it is copywritten. Some of it is directly from the source and hasn't been reworked yet. So it was just for a visual effect. The objective was to come up with some kind of sample. Matt and I worked together on our assignment, which was geology. And I'm going to go backwards from my notes forwards, but geography of the Verde Valley panels, we could potentially have two panels addressing both sides if they were repositioned, or two or three kiosks, 6 panels total. So addressing both sides of the kiosk, which are windows. And so the key points, or boiling it down to just the most digestible and interesting information about the geography of the Verde Valley, would be Mingus Mountain and the Black Hills, how the cement plant factored into the geology of the Verde Valley, the Verde River Valley itself, The Red Rocks of Sedona, because when you stand on any number of prospects in Clarkdale, you can see the magnificent view of the Red Rocks of Sedona. The smelter and the slag pile and soil restoration, and then viticulture and how the geography of the Verde Valley is conducive to viticulture. So as I started working and researching this with Matt, there were any number, it brought about more questions than content at this point. And so once again, I go back to what we've shared with each other thus far and what particular subtopics and or themes we've identified. We have 2 documents that have come from Britt that break things down into similar but different fashions. And so to see a project like this completed en complet, it's what are we going to address? What kind of research are we going to do so that we're not spinning our wheels and doing the same research and finding the same information to put on different panels? Or do we want to be able to tie information together from one panel to the other? And how are we going to do that? How many panels are going to be assigned to each theme? And I have a visual for that, which I can explain. Have we determined what the temporal parameters of our town history is? Do we have a starting point and an ending point? What decisions were made with respect to the Yavapai Apache Nation? How many panels had we dedicated? You sent out a link, which I reviewed, and I'm wondering if there are any landmarks in Clarkdale that would be considered Latino historic landmarks. And these don't need to be answered right now, but it's like, these are all the questions that came up that I thought could be also fleshed out as we move forward. And then how and or where are we going to be addressing the socioeconomic or cultural stratification of the town, which is essentially the plan town and management labor division. And then the next thing that came up is I looked at all of the examples that were sent to us, and a number of where are those notes? I might not have brought them with me, but the examples that you sent, they were designated as 24 by 36 landscape panels. So I went back and I measured our windows or our kiosks, and our kiosks are, I'll just for simplification, portrait. So up and down as opposed to the landscape samples that were sent to us. They're 54 by 36, but each one of those panels is about 17 by 10.5 inches of visual space. And so my question was, are we discarding the compositional framework of the existing kiosks because the examples that were sent don't fit within visual guides or visual regulations? I mean, that grid regulates how we look at the visual information. And then have we made any decisions about, do we have the resources to consider replacement? And with replacement, I mean moving the location, not replacing them. Because as Matt pointed out, it's very important that the kiosk and the information be germane to its site. And then the last one is my last visual that I'll share with you. And that is, it doesn't seem that I found in any of the information that's been shared thus far that we've addressed ADA requirements for font and text and placement. And so just ever so briefly, any literature that has to be read should be 48 to 60 inches from the base. So are we going to check and make sure that each one of these kiosks is sunk into its foundation so that it's at the right height? And then, you know, much like when you're installing a gallery exhibition or a permanent exhibit, the focus of any composition, you ballpark it, and this is an old rule of thumb that varies depending on the composition, but 5-6 is where you put the center of the composition. If you walked into the Louvre right now to look at the Virgin and Child and St. John, the triangular composition, the center of it is 5-6. So, as we go about coming up with how much information we want and what visuals we're going to use, there are considerations. And also the 24 by 36 panels that were a lot of the examples we were sent were more, I'm going to stand up for this. So our kiosks are flat and frontal, right? And I'm about 5'6" on a good day. So the center of the composition would be about here, but you'd want to be able to read somewhere between here and here. The examples that were sent to us were very familiar to me, and those are lower set, and they look to me as if they were installed at a 35-degree angle, so you're reading as if you were at a podium. We have some on the jail trail. You can't read them anymore because they're all cooked.
Most of them are vertical.
There were some,
Right.
but many of them, the 24 by 36 were this way. So it's just how are we going to, I don't think they should all be regimented and standardized, but there are things to consider. And all of these considerations will influence how much research we do. So this is an example of 16-point font. And so the guideline is anywhere from 5/8 of an inch for font to 2 inches, for ADA and readability. So the 3 center panels, which would be 17 by 10.5. So this is an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. So this is ballpark, a little shy of filling those boxes.
Mhm.
And you want to have space, and you want to have some bolder, taller font for the titles or subtopics, right? So this is 3 panels, and this is 1,000 words. So it says we do research. How much research are we going to do on any topic? Because 3 panels on one of these kiosks will hone 1,000 words, a little more or a little less, but I tend to round things up or down. So these were my 3 visuals for tonight's meeting. Yes.
So all 3 of them is 1,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this would be, and I did all of my little handout was by hand because I no longer have the software. And I was credentialed to be an art instructor, but they took away my X-Acto knives a long time ago. So I did the best I could with the kitchen shears. But that's all cut and paste. So this is what a little less than what 3 panels of text on the kiosk would take. And it's about 1,000 words. It's 950. But there's no sub breaks. So these are the design and the organizational questions that came to me. One of the other issues is, to what degree are we going to address popular history and peer-reviewed history? Because I just played with the smelter, and I have several different sets of dates and facts for the smelter. The one that was the most pronounced was there are 3 different dates for blowing up the smokestacks. And
There were 2 smokestacks and they were blown up at 2 different times.
Right.
But not 3 different times.
right.
We can find that out.
Well, but some of the information I got from our historical society, some of it that differs was from the special collections at NAU, and a third was from a mining history publication. They were indeed all different.
Okay.
Um,
Well, we have an eyewitness to one of us.
And I have pictures of it. I found this in the attic of one of our houses. So these belong to the Hunters. Do you remember the Hunters? And yeah, you can see them. They're from a distance. But Mr. Hunter dated them 1962. That doesn't make Mr. Hunter any more credible than any of the others. So to what degree are we going to research the factoids? And yeah,
So were they all in the 1960s?
Yeah.
So we could just say in the early 1960s? The
Yeah.
smokestacks were demolished?
and or we could go like any, reasonable researcher. How much data are we going to collect, Michael? 3 out of 5? Yeah, of course. They're flapping around, so be careful.
Race. And we were allowed to go watch the demolition of eighty. 566. There was only one at that point. Mine almost a long time. since
I think
lost the other.
they took the steel one down right after they closed the mine down, so that actually would have been in fifties.
Yeah.
And then the second one, the brick one, came down in probably 65.
And if
It-
you want a photo of the remaining stack, get demolition. Oh, there was one.
Oh, cool.
It was a thing.
That was a big thing. But folks find it.
So
There's a video of the second one down at the museum, and maybe that's something that can be the QR code.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
So, yeah, so it's, those are the questions that in the past month, working on this little project, have come to us. It's just, to what degree are we going to check our facts and our sources and
Well, it should be accurate, because,
one would hope.
yeah. You know,
I think,
Yeah, of course. I'm done talking.
well, I've been very one of those myself. I don't wanna pile on, but how much of this, in fact, are we the ones to do? Which is the design, which is the composition, the text. I mean, I don't know you guys, but I'll get out of depth relatively quickly, some of these things. And, these are somewhat permanent, visible, say a lot about who's behind them kind of markers, and it should have something that's presentable and done properly. So yeah, it's like, I think we need to think about all those questions, and how far are we gonna go? I mean, I'm fine with the mock up. But like Amy said, mine as well is probably borrowed from top and third. Probably sharing with you all. And so there's a lot of just the groups that jump over.
Well, one of the things to consider, and I mean, these are the things that one ponders when putting together an exhibition or an exhibit, which essentially this is going to be a permanent history exhibit in our town, is we have a design guideline provided to us by the vehicle, which is, it's cut into 9 boxes. And the 9 boxes and the windows are germane to our history here. It's just making them more digestible to the audience. And 1,000 words on a panel, that's a good introduction to any topic. And, Cynthia pointed out, we can get the little QR code for more information if it sparks someone's attention. So we have a grid or a guide or a regulation, if you will, for this exhibition. But you're absolutely right. Do we design them ourselves, or as the commission, do we do the rudimentary research, write up a 1,000-word essay on our topic? And then the next thing, which goes into a situation like this, is what material are we going to use? Because we have a lot of signage around town, and I've been taking pictures of it that's just fried, and the materials are not enduring. And when we first started to have the conversation, one of the suggestions that is, one of the new medium is ceramic. You can digitally print applique that can be fired onto ceramic tile. So we could get 17 by 10-inch ceramic tiles and have a designer digitally produce the template, whatever we mock up. And, of course, it should be better than mine that was put together with Scotch tape. But, we can come up with something like this and turn it over to a graphic designer or an artist who can produce this on ceramic tile for us. But yeah, who designs it? I mean, I'm not saying that this is the ultimate way to do it. It was just, it's geography and it's the landscape, and landscapes are beautiful horizons with either architecture on them or not.
What are the chances that the town could provide funding for a graphic designer or an editor?
Well, I think there's some grant programs, seeing that SHPO at least got refunded, that we can apply for that would help fund a portion of this.
Okay.
Right now, we're pretty skinny budget-wise, so I don't know that the town could do it. But Gus, when we replaced those panels, do you remember what the material was we used? No, the new ones. We just redid them when Guthrie got here. I don't think they were vinyl. They were some other kind of, yeah. Gotcha.
Block you get 10 years, ones that are in direct sunlight, you might get 10, you might get 5. They still have, they have stuff that they can put on them on top of the fact that they're UV protected material, but nothing's gonna last forever. That's me that. That, and look, like when we did the addresses here, they told me those aren't gonna last forever. They lasted almost to the day that the guy said they lasted. I want to say it's about 10 years. So, yeah, the product you're talking about is fabulous. Is it costly? Yes. Guaranteed. Because it's a specialized product. You go that route for the big product.
So when we're talking about maybe applying for some grants, are we talking about applying for the grants for the design to help us with the design and the layout?
It would probably be the whole package, design, layout, all of that.
So in other words, we would give them the information we want to see on the signs and then
Correct.
they would design it. It seems like that might be the way to go if we can get the funding for that. For it to look professional and.
I think we would still need to provide text and images,
Right.
and it would be the continuity between the signs that we would be essentially paying for, right? So we would still have to do the work up front. And editorial services, I think, are relatively inexpensive these days, but I don't know about graphic design. There's a million places online. I mean, the quality of the editor might be a question, but.
Sorry.
There are design companies that I've looked at that, or that do interpretive signage as their whole, that's their only focus. So they do outdoor interpretive signage when it comes to design, placement materials, printing. So everything kind of goes through them. There isn't a ton of them, but they do exist. It could be separated out by, okay, the designer's going to look at this who has experience in designing interpretive signage. And then figuring out a manufacturer or someone who does the printing, things like that. I think with the application for a grant, you can ask for the whole package, right? And then we could see what we would be able to work with after that fact.
And they may have suggestions as to materials as well, especially, here where the sun kills everything.
But I think at this stage, if you guys could prepare the best proposal that you would be able to offer a said designer, said, manufacturer of these things, that would be the best thing, I think, for us to just do our best on doing some mock-ups, perhaps suggesting certain layouts and the utilization of the space, along with the context and tools. And most of these design places have loads of copyright-free pictures that they utilize, or they pay for the image, the licensing on a lot of these images. So, you know, we could do that. You can get a lot of subscriptions to licensing materials because I do marketing consulting on the side. So I use a lot of images and I license images. So it just depends on that. And these designers have access to so many of them.
Do they also have access to text, to not just the visuals, not just pictures, but also text that isn't copyrighted that we could use?
I think if we do our best to write the material, the 1,000, and do our best with that and kind of propose it, that would be great. I haven't spoken to any of these and I don't know what their capabilities really are. They're just what I've seen.
So the issue with that is it's expensive because we're not, everything we ask them to do, we have to pay them to do. So we're asking them to proofread, edit, rewrite. So that does kind of, any money we spend on that is taking away from what we can spend on the materials for the new signs. So I think maybe if everybody here is a competent writer. So I think if we can put together, like you said, 1,000-word essay, right? Try to make it as concise and informative as possible, and then include QR codes for additional information. I think maybe that would be the best route to go. So that way there will be things that we discover that, or if we want to include that we just don't have room, but that are important to the story, right? Like the video of the smokestack coming down. So I think if we included some QR codes for more information, that would probably be the way that we can get some more of the information that is germane, but not enough room to include.
Also, a website is much easier to edit and then make sure that everything is updated. And, you know, if we accidentally use a phrase or whatever, we can always go back in there and do it. So, I mean, that's definitely down to the end stages. So I would like to maybe repivot and bring up Commissioner Westcott's panel.
So
Would you like to walk us through your mock-up and kind of what your thought process was when?
Yeah, well, as I shared last meeting, the Verde River topic obviously is and I think as I noted maybe the map specifically, I was almost by default coming from geology of the Verde River initially, and that there was going to be some crossover, and we'll have to decide what belongs where. But you know, to tell the story of the current Verde Valley and River, I thought, you know, you kind of got to set the stage. So my approach was find some graphics that focus in on the Verde Fault, the uplift, subsidence, the Verde Formation specifically, because as you walk out on the pool deck and look around, you see the vast majority of what you see at eye level is the Verde Formation. And some of that involves prior flora and fauna. So I thought, all right, kind of start there. And then the text portion I kept very minimal, could easily get 1,000 words. But I saw something from, it's a local group. It wasn't Friends of the Verde River, but it was a local group that's got some origin, a bit of origin in the Verde Valley. And they broke it down into similar to those main headings. I kind of borrowed from them. And of course, again, we'd have to be careful about copywriting. But thought, you know, between landforms, formation of the valley, the ancestral river, the springs, deepness of the water in the locale, both above Jerome and the river itself, and then of course people, metals, mining, and then the modern, kind of more modern story of recreation on the river. We tell a pretty good story there. And then the lower panels were just photos I dug up. One, a view of the Verde Valley from the original smelter in Jerome, where the open pit now sits. Bridgeport crossing there on the top left view. The old springy bridge down closer to Maine at the bottom of the hill. And then I couldn't avoid having an aerial of Peck's Lake there. I had to do that. So, yeah, and it's great because it's a meander or oxbow cut off from the Verde, so is Lossy Marsh. So those were included there together. So, you know, maybe we'll decide that the focus should go more with kind of that bottom, telling the story of the more modern, maybe last 100 years of the Verde River. I don't know how far into the geology we want to go, because again, that could spill over to what you guys are doing.
May I speak?
Yeah.
So so just these two panels and just this conversation right now kind of substantiates I guess I'll call it my argument right now, which is we have 26 panels. We should decide on 26 topics that we want to address. Gus, could you scroll so that we see the whole panel at once, minimize it so that we can see the whole panel at once? So Ruth just spoke to when we start hiring a designer, when we start getting someone else to do our research, then it starts to be, you know, expensive and more resource. You have a number of really great images, right? And all of them are germane to the history of Clarkdale, because there's no Clarkdale without the river. And so, and it's just from my education and my background, but that's an incredibly busy panel.
Oh, super.
And all of those little QR codes that are punctuating the imagery, it's just, if we could come up with a plan, it doesn't have to be like everybody's are the landscapes, because Matt and I looked at a bunch of the geology grids and graphics, and those would lend themselves to using 2 rows or 2 columns. So 6 panels on the left side of a graphic, and then 3 panels of narrative running down in 1 column. So they don't all have to be uniform the way I thought to put things together, but we're worried about copyright, we're worried images, and we're worried about text. If we keep it simple and start with a framework of, we have 26 panels, what 26 topics do we want to address? And then let's talk about which images we like best, because those, you know, really hard to decide because they're all really great images that you found. And how are we, the geology and the Verde River, you know, supporting and complementing each other, and where are we going to put these? So I think if we had, and here comes the boring college professor, but if we had an outline of what we want to do, and we had a word count, and, you know, we knew what our 26 narratives needed to be, one of the things that, one of my gifts in the world is to be able to see a project finished and to see it done as simply as possible, because I'm an incredibly lazy person. So, you know, if we came up with more of a framework, it wouldn't be an insurmountable task to do a good amount of this ourselves, with partnering with our historical society, because they have a wealth of visual information. And what do you think of that, Matt?
Well, I think that may simplify, but I don't think that will keep us from running into some of the same issues.
Which are the needing a designer and.
Well, I think just with what we would do, running into that overlap. I think we're still going to do that. So we have to figure out a way to work through that. Maybe this isn't the most efficient way to do it, but and I don't think we can choose 26 different topics. I think we'll have some
Right.
smaller number.
26
Pan-
different
yeah.
panels.
Yeah, yeah.
So one of the things that you pointed out, I mean, when I talked about what are the temporal parameters of this project and what's the history and is it human history? When you're talking about geology or change in the landscape or the environment, there's geomorphic change and there's anthropomorphic change. And so slag piles, which are definitely part of our river and our environment, are not geomorphic. So, you know, and that affects the river, but it's also part of smelting and it's part of the mining. So if we had some kind of 26 ideas, we could boil it down and decide where to focus our research energies and our image energies.
So if I can just kind of explain, because I know you weren't able to make the last meeting. So at the last meeting, and certainly commissioners, correct me if I'm wrong, we discussed kind of being stuck about how to proceed and how to address all of this. And the point of this exercise was, look, let's just put one together or a couple of them together, see how they look, see where the information would overlap. And then maybe we can get a little bit more focused on what it is we want to do. So I think that's the reason that the commission decided to do these sample boards. And I think that this is what Commissioner Westcott was talking about is exactly why it was helpful to do them.
Mhm.
So I think if we could do something like this and then we look at them and go, okay, this needs to go here, that one needs to go there. But to narrow it down.
Yeah, totally. And Cynthia, you put one together as well, didn't you?
Well, Britt put it together for me. I gave her,
But-
the raw material. So do you want to show that?
Can you go to that one, Gus?
Those are 3 of the endangered species.
Is that a Chiricahua leopard frog?
Southwest, Southwest, I think Southwest leopard frog, I don't know.
Yeah.
the name on it. But the bullfrogs are eating them, and interestingly, the Tabasis raise bullfrogs and Washington fell to, I don't know, food.
Sure did. And now they've taken over and they're eating everything else in there.
Not a beautiful.
So if we scaled this, that text would be pretty big, right? Yeah.
So is this one panel, Gus? Are you scrolling or is this 2 panels?
Oh,
So can you scale it down so that we could see the 54 by 36? See, I. Got a picture of my dog in there.
the images are fantastic.
So it's, does it just? So the first one, the bottom 3 panels are the eagle, the birding paradise, and the quail. And then we scroll further down and the top image is the river, Clarkdale's natural legacy. See, it's great.
Yeah.
I like how it's so.
So-
how you put it together.
State, the top of and then the cactus there. Yeah, other way, Gus, other way. Right there.
I see. Can you go back up to the top? Yes.
No,
No.
to the very top.
Yeah, because I'm there, I see like 3 themes there. This is the endangered species
Mhm.
and birding. And the putting willow, green zone, and then you scroll down some. Then we're talking about invasive species. And then, not all of those are, but one could be like, endangered species, invasive species, and, I don't know. What is it called?
I just threw them out so we could look at the conditions or.
Yeah, I'm
Because it was
trying to narrow it
necessary.
down.
No, so, I mean, this is brilliant because it's, when I look at the kiosks, it's like whole journal articles glued into the framework is laborious. So more pictures is wonderful. And the information is, I mean, I can't read it from here, but you know, it's direct and it addresses the issue. But I go back to my question, are we throwing away the kiosk frames? Or can we adjust, or is it just the way Gus is scrolling that I'm not seeing the black framework? Because,
This is just my mock-up.
right,
Speaking, like, without the confines of the black framework, this is just what I wrote so we can understand the information that.
yeah. So it's, all of that could be like beautifully put
Oh,
in
and then
to the
third thing
framework.
is, historic, that was prehistoric.
I think the amount of text looks really good. I can't read it from here either, but it looks, just the amount of it looks perfect, I think.
Just have fun. Stuff.
And I think it looks great.
I like how you utilize the wide picture with all the separate.
And so,
So this is one where it'd be easy to insert QR codes into that text. Or even as a small corner in like some of the photos. You want to know more about a mastodon? Here you go.
So I'm not exactly sure how QR codes work and whatnot, but that's not important right now. We could incorporate as a standard feature, like the equivalent of footnotes at the bottom of every kiosk, because nobody's going to want to get down on their knees to look at the detail of a photograph that far down, and nobody's going to get down on their knees to read it. So if we put QR codes, those are things that you hold your phone next down and then you can
And it just takes you to a web
lift
page.
it up to your
Yeah.
face to read your phone, right?
it's,
You
they
have
can
to
be
be
hard to do.
Yeah.
It's hard to do them at an angle. Like if you're gonna
Yeah.
try to do them at fries with your phone, try to
Well-
get the weekly to go. It's not easy.
Well,
So it has to be fun.
I think, yeah.
So what if it were, yeah, footnotes, or, you know, we just come up with a graphic signature or a graphic design that's standard. So doing it on the bottom is bad because I don't know how QR codes work. Then the center panel on the far right, you know, there's a border that's QR codes.
I think there might be how it works.
QR code should go. Yeah. Yeah, that would answer the question altogether. But I don't think this is an insurmountable project for us. And certainly, the more I look at Cindy's, I mean, 1,000 words maximum. Cynthia, I'm so sorry.
No.
I call my sisters the wrong names too. Like, look at Cynthia's, and when we look at the sample that you had with the, you know, the bullet point information, it's like, this is 1,000 words and it would eat up 3 panels. Do we want that much information or not? Because, you know, it wastes. Do we want text, or do we want more images? Do we want to have, you know, a mixture? So,
I'm gonna chime in while the thought's still in my head too, in support of working backward, you know, I mean, this, to me, this is, we're providing instructional material, providing educational material. And the best way to determine what will best get your learner to the end point is to start at the end point and work backwards. I don't think it's actually backwards, but it's called backward design. I just want to say something in support of what Amy suggested, and that is, maybe it's not 26 topics, but let's decide what's going to be on these 26
Panels.
before we do a whole lot more. Because we may have already done a lot of work that's not going to end up on them, and we'll do more that isn't going to end up on them if we don't decide what we want on them.
From staff's perspective, I think that's a great approach. And that's kind of what I was hoping this would generate is now that we see, now that you guys see how these look, maybe now we can go, okay, so we're not going to do 26 different topics. We need to have areas based on the locations of these signs of what we're going to talk about.
And the themes we previously identified can still be a part of that.
Right. So maybe like including with the geology of the Verde Valley, right, and Clarkdale, we have images, right, of the Apache and Yavapai encampments that would be interesting, might be interesting to put up, or scan as a QR code and say, here's what it looked like when the Native Americans were, with the Yavapai and Apache tribes were here. And I think that kind of thought process would probably help us a lot. So now that we've seen what's going on, now to decide, we're not going to do 26 panels. And this, like I said, this is where I hoped we would be going, that we're with 26 different topics, but rather big themes that can apply all over the place, right? So when we're talking about, again, about the geology, there's a panel down in Upper Clarkdale, like kind of in a triangle with all the houses around it. It would make sense to talk about geology there, but architecture it would, right? So I think now maybe we go back and do exactly what you're proposing, is to go, okay, here's what we really should be focusing on, and then start doing research based on that.
So we wouldn't be building panels, we would be building folders with information. Is that what you're saying?
No, I think we get to the panels, but I think to take a step now and to really kind of drill down on what we need to put in, what the topics are going to be.
And then collecting content.
Right. And then talk about content based on locations of the signs, which makes sense.
I go back to, are we moving the signs?
I don't think we can. Unless, I would, unless there's some compelling reason to. I mean, they're sunken pretty well and they're on railroad ties and concrete. They won't be inexpensive to move unless you have a jackhammer.
Okay. So the reason why I brought up that question is in one of our initial meetings, if you'll remember, one of the signs is down near the railroad tracks on the way to Patio Town, and there's really no way to access it.
Yeah, that one definitely needs to be moved. That's a
So
terrible.
it's dangerous to walk to. There's nowhere to park. So.
Right. So that's one we could probably get Public Works to relocate.
So that's what I meant.
Right. If there's a couple of them, yes, but I don't think relocating all of them, Public Works will kill me.
Okay. Okay. And then, so another issue would be to look at the ones that are really non-viable. So 13 kiosks, 26 panels, but we have 3 of them that are installed in a triangle right next to the Historical Society, and viewing the inside of those 3 kiosks is kind of a non-starter. So, we could take 3 panels off the list of 26 because shimmying inside to look at those.
Isn't there?
Maybe leave those 3 be simple. They're just
Right.
cited.
Right, that's what
Yeah.
I meant.
Yeah.
We don't encourage anyone to go in the middle of those and try to look. You can't back up to see a prospect. And, being claustrophobic in their reading. So that takes 3 of the 26 off the list because they're really not viable, if you will. So.
I think there's one over on, is it 14th, that's overlooks the railroad? And it's perpendicular to the street, and it would be much more useful if it were turned
Actually,
I mean, it parallels the street, and it'd be much more useful if it were perpendicular to.
now I can't remember, but when I was doing the geology research, I kind of drove around and looked at them again, and I thought it would be really great to have two of them right there on First, North, and 13th. I got it right. I'm geographically challenged. So that two panels are looking at, I had a layout for them here someplace. Okay, two panels. So the one dedicated to the Black Hills and Mingus Mountain, you're standing here looking at the Black Hills and Mingus Mountain. And then the one next to it is dedicated to the smelter, the cement plant, because that's what you're looking at. And then on the other side of those kiosks, the other two panels are, one is dedicated to the Verde River Valley, because you're looking at the valley, although it could be dedicated to something else, but then the smelter. You know, so that while you're looking at the panels, you're looking at the subject matter. So,
I think as best we can, we should try to make the subject matter align with the location. Kiosk. But I do really like the idea of having, at least in general terms, of the subject matter for each available panel delineated before you create a whole lot.
all looking to you.
So where do we start with that? I guess maybe brainstorming out, topics, general topics.
Britt took care of that for us
Yeah.
several meetings ago. Here, let me pull them out. So, I mean, I suppose we could all just sit down and hammer out 26 or 23.
Well, if we want to tie them to locations, maybe it would be worth seeing what we have that ties to locations. They're not all going to be great for that, but certainly some of them will be really good. So maybe figuring out which ones fit with locations really well.
So we do have little handout pamphlets, maps that we give out. So maybe, so Britt's going to go grab a handful of them so we can all look at them. And I think that'll help us
Okay.
talk about, or help you guys talk about
Yeah.
locations. And
Have that in.
Maybe while we're waiting too, I just wanted to bring up, I think it's a good idea to think about if we could leverage expertise from people to help with this. I don't know how we would do that necessarily because that's not free, but
Hang on.
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
leveraging like people to help with research, maybe students or
So I have an appointment with a mining engineer from the U of A and USGS to go over 1,000 words on the smelter and
Okay.
slag piles. And then I'm meeting with a viticulture professor from the U of A to discuss the soil and why it lends itself to the wine industry here now. And then NAU Special Collections and the Historical Society. I mean, I was just focusing on the smelter, just like as a dry run.
some sound bites
And
and some
we are being,
video.
yeah. I am supposed to have access to the college library and its online resources, being an emeritus faculty member. But we'll see if that can happen soon. But I do have access to online scholarly libraries, and we can, like find out. We can't ask Dean anymore about anything. But, we
I would hope that short snippets of text, we could find the right people to send it to.
Yeah.
And send it, and they could give us a review and comments. It doesn't seem unreasonable for
go.
anyone in a university or college.
So I thought it was in here. But when we first met, I went, yeah, here they are. So marker 10 is on 13th and First South. So that's the one that we were just talking about. And marker, these are going upside down and backwards. So I have the location of all of them pretty much, and I have pictures of what the surrounding view was. Anyways,
That's helpful.
do
We have copies of that, like where you want to put the map.
it was a PowerPoint presentation that I gave at our first meeting. So here, let me. So marker 10 is on 13th and First, and it's at an intersection in one of the historic neighborhoods. 13th and First South, take it back. So that is on the triangular, the wild intersection right there. But the issue about this particular marker is that it deals with architecture in the houses, and all the houses in the immediate view have been added onto, and Dave Williams' house was built in the 90s. Michael, do you remember when Scott Rohr built the house right there that Dave Williams lives in now? It had to have been sometime between 92 and 97, right?
Yeah.
So one of our kiosks on the architecture is parked in an intersection where all the houses have been altered, or it's a new house. Marker number 9 is on First North and 14th. It is First North and 14th. So view of the smelter and the cement plant, the sea on the hill. The house on the corner has aluminum siding. The house across the street is a mid-century modern that was built in the 60s, right? You can see the railroad, the smelter, and the cement plant. You also look down and you can see that there's an unusual grove of trees, and you wonder why they're there. Marker 8 is at the west end of the park on Main Street. It's accessible by foot or car. So you can see the tennis court, the big scoreboard, the boarding house, the house on First South, the bandstand, and the original gateway and fountain are right there. So, so I went around and identified where each marker was and took pictures of the surrounding area. Markers 4, 5, and 6 are the ones that are right by the Historical Society. And those would certainly lend themselves to, information about our Historical Society and Senator Clark. Also should be important that we talk, it used to be our Department of Motor Vehicles, and you never had to wait more than 10 minutes to get your car registered. Markers 1, 2, and 3 are right around Town Hall Center.
So not to add some more stuff to our project, but there are some signs around town that are not in these kiosks. Like I just noticed today, there's a sign in front of the grill that faces the downtown buildings that talks about their history and their architecture and all kinds of information on that sign. And it's just about this big. And it's not on one of these markers.
Is it one of those metal ones?
Yeah. There's actually a couple of those in town. But that would be an excellent place to put information about the downtown buildings or revamp it from what it is right now.
I believe there's one by the bandstand as well.
No, it's in front of the grill, and
There is.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Right, right. And they're both about the same size and they're not on these kiosks.
But we can update that information. Those are town properties, so we can include those in this and update those as well. So use those panels.
Really, the information on both those signs is really good, I think. And if the,
But there's still that one that's in front of the restaurant.
Mhm.
I started looking here.
Okay, so maybe we shouldn't worry about those two signs if they're still in good shape and they have good information on them, but maybe we should keep, put them in the mix that this information is here, so that we don't duplicate it on one of these kiosks.
So since I brought it up, as I look at this map, it seems to me that the only one of the kiosks that's really far afield is the number 13. Uh-huh.
Is there going to be a mitigation down on Selma Mangini about, because that was a historic ballpark and it's been rehabbed for modern use, but as I understand, they needed to put some kind of mitigation, a plaque or something that tells something about the ballpark and that's what used to be here. Is that correct?
Yeah. I believe that there is a plaque that's going to go where home plate was,
Okay.
but there's no reason, there is one of these signs is down by the park and there's no reason why we can't.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, more information about that.
It looks like there's two signs down there. Two kiosks down there. Do we want to try and assign a theme tonight to each one of these kiosks? Or at least some of them,
Well, yeah.
based on where they are and what they're looking at?
And I don't know how much we wanna rely on that original kind of brainstorming about themes. Remember Brittany put together two different sort of ways of grouping those, but I believe either way we had, I don't wanna say only, but I think we had 4 or 5 themes. Which might do it. We may now though look at that list and based on some of the research we've done, well, we need more, or maybe just modify that slightly. But I think that's, I think that's gonna best approach is start with those themes or come up with a finalized list. I include those. And then decide, let's break those out and start nailing down what's going to go where. Yeah.
What I could do is send you all just the standard list of topics that you all came up with. Resend them to you, have you all look it over during these next 2 weeks, and then we can bring back another refresh set of themes to our work session.
Like that.
Next time we meet, do we want to each try and assign a theme to each one of these signs?
It's
Which
a
one?
work session. Are they able to take action during that, or what are we able to do?
Well, I don't think that that's really action as assigning because we're not like adopting text or things like that. So just discussing, who's going to do what really wouldn't be an action.
Well,
If, if I could make a suggestion, maybe what we do is take the list of markers, right? And then everybody just kind of look at it and think, based on what you know about the town and where you think, for instance, marker number 11. So that's down by the park.
Thelma Mongini Park, yes.
Right, so is that a good one to talk about Lower Clarkdale? Maybe that's where we talk about stratification because that's where the non-executive, non-managerial workers lived. That kind of thing, the baseball field, right? Or maybe somebody else has got a different idea. But that way we can all just kind of compare notes on which ones everybody thinks should go there because we all think differently and maybe somebody's got a different perspective on what should go where. And then that way we'll at least get some sort of beginning.
I think I know the answer to this, but is working off of a shared document a violation of open meeting law? Okay. It would be far easier if we could do that.
no, it's funny that you should mention that because I have open meeting law printed out in here someplace.
So I just had a thought while you're looking that up. I just had a thought about those 3 kiosks over near the museum, looking at that and how difficult it is to move around them. Instead of trying to move the kiosks, what about changing the landscaping so it's easier
I was
to walk around them?
I agree with you 100%. If it were paved, I don't know. And the tree is lovely, so it provides shade.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right, if there was just flagstone or something, I mean, and now we're picking nits, but you're absolutely right. If
Yeah.
it were just.
So that we can
landscape,
use both sides of them, but so there's a little walkway that leads you into that trio of signs.
So minimum width for ADA is 3 feet. So as long as there's 3 feet, we can either meet ADA compliance between the signs or around the backs of the signs, right? So you would have to go to the one facing, on the right or the left, and then go into the back. But when the museum did their upgrade, the town put ADA accessible sidewalks out there so that so people could access them.
So they could access those kiosks?
Yes.
Oh, it's just that the walking surface is not really accessible to somebody who's using a wheelchair or a walker. If
Right.
it's just like it's permeable anyway. We're getting off into the weeds, but it doesn't look like it. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but it doesn't look very accessible to ADA.
Oh, no,
And-
they're concrete sidewalks.
Right here?
Well, this is an old picture.
Okay, I'll have to go back and look at it then.
Trust me, we had a long discussion about what would work for these for ADA compliance. So like I said, you can actually go around the back, or if those are 3 feet apart and we'll meet ADA, we'll just put sidewalks and then kind of in an arc so that whoever needs that hard surface has it available to them to look at the rest of them.
So in the interest of sort of mosquitoes in here, in the interest of anybody else seeing them? In the interest of sort of not letting this go too long, I think we should our objective should be to be ready for the work session to sort of identify topics with with signs.
Also, if I could, Cynthia, there is a sign that's laying on its side that was a safety sign for the, we could employ that one as well somewhere.
I did have one of the commissioners who is a builder take a look at it, and he doesn't think it's salvageable. It's in pretty bad shape. So yeah, that was his opinion. He was the one I was thinking of might be able to repair it.
Well, there's actually, we have sort of future business. There are a few things I did want to mention with that. But is there anything else anyone wants to mention about signs? Is there anything that anyone else wants to bring up about future agenda items, new business, before I drone on about my couple of things? Okay. I did want to put, where's my notes here? I did want to put the Latinos and Conservation Heritage on the list. I know that we had talked about that did we talk about that in the work session, I think? And then you had sent the link out. There are some things about that I think are worth discussion. It looks like we've missed the application deadline for that, which is unfortunate, but I do think that we would have a pretty good chance. It looks like the final list comes out in September, so we can see what's actually made the list, and that would help us. But that may help us. We could put together a project that may help us with these signs as well. It seems like there's a lot of latitude in the types of things that you might suggest for a project. So that's a good idea for next year, for sure. So I think we should continue to talk about it. The other thing is it's sort of looking at what other towns and cities are doing. There are a lot of examples of hotel, motel taxes being used for historic preservation grants. I'd like us to look into that. I don't know what that would take. Obviously, that's got to go to town council, but I think that would be a really good thing for us to start to discuss as we have time. One of the things that Commissioner Mullen and I talked about, what was that, last week, was just sort of lamenting some of the relationships with the business owners and wanting to improve those, and some of the things that we've heard from the residents in terms of their perception of historic preservation. I think that's something like a matching grant, even for a small amount of money, would go a long way in helping the commission to, I think, repair some of those relationships, either with business owners or particularly with residents. I don't think it would have to start off being a large amount of money. What I've seen around is $10,000 is that's sort of the standard rate, but it could be less than that. We could define the types of things we wanted to focus on. Windows are a big topic for the houses in town. That could go along with recommendations for the types of windows that, maybe people should look at for their particular homes. So that's something to talk. I'm just guessing bureaucratically that's going to take a long time to get to council, but I think that's something that is worth talking about as well.
Our program for tourism, right, where we use certain funds from, hotels to fund our tourism and marketing efforts.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. The third thing that I'd like to talk about, which was on our priority list for 25, but not very high, was looking at and inventorying historic buildings in our district. I think thinking ahead, a couple of years. The timing seems right as we're seeing the extension to the Copper Museum and the newsstand coming along with their renovations. After those are finished, it may be a good time to inventory the businesses and think again about what are the character defining features that those buildings still retain, and what are the things that we want to advocate for as we have people proposing to change those buildings or adaptively reuse them. So that's another thing to think about. That's obviously going to cost some money. I don't know how much that would cost. If we just did it for the downtown, it would obviously be cheaper, but we would be looking at hiring a contract firm or something like that. I don't think it's probably doable just with our group here, especially if we're working with signs and other things. So that's another thing to think about. I know that we have this document too, but I think there are some things this document misses that we may want to think about in terms of strategies. So that's my three things that I'd like to try to keep on the future agenda item list for discussion moving forward.
And I'd just like to bring up something. I don't know if this is something that needs to go onto the agenda item, but I think I'd mentioned before I'd been to the Historic Preservation Conference down in Phoenix, and I took the training for legal government commissioners, which was really helpful. And I've asked if, since SHPO still has funding, I've asked if Ariana Urban could come and give us a class, because I think as I understand it, when a town becomes a certified legal government, the Historic Preservation Commission takes an even more important role in terms of assessing historic buildings. And it's important, I think, for us to understand the Secretary of State's standards for historic preservation. Something that was emphasized a lot in the class is that you need to really look at the standards when you're looking at projects and come at it from that standpoint. That was just one of the things I got out of the class. So I'm hoping that she can come and just do a class for us. Her class actually used a lot of Clarkdale buildings, quite a few of them, and it was really useful. And I was also thinking I don't know if it's appropriate, it might be appropriate for the Planning Commission to also be at the class, since they are going to be doing design review for buildings that are not opted in to the ordinance.
So if I can respond to that, thank you for bringing that up. That's on my list. I have talked to Ariana a couple of times, and right now she doesn't have a time in her calendar, but she can come in September, and she would like to come twice and do 2 sessions. So we will be adding her to the agenda for September and October. And then so with respect to design review, the legislature passed and the governor approved House Bill 2447, which has, by changing one word and 2 sentences, wreaked havoc on the way we do reviews. So essentially, without going into a ton of detail with respect to design review, we can do it, but it has to be at the staff level, and it has to be objective standards. So using the Secretary of Interior standards would be fine. I think those are objective standards. You can't argue with those. But with respect to the staff review, I look for the legislature to change that. I know they had some pushback from the historic preservation community, and I expect that they will be changing that and accepting historic preservation from that. Last year, they adopted rules regarding accessory dwelling units and did not put an exemption in for historic districts. And this year they have done that. So I expect that correction to be made in a year.
Okay. Any other comments, discussion items? Okay. Does anyone want to put forth a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries, meeting adjourned.